Fan service is a necessity for the medium to thrive, like it or not. Can I get a true in the comments real quick? With that being said, this is an article posted by Anime TV Japan, an account with over 1.5 million followers. Quite a bit of people follow this account, and this article is now starting to make a lot of waves, and it comes at a time to where there is a massive conversation around fan service, or let's just say adult content within anime. Now, as you all know, for a while I've been talking about adult content, or censorship, fan service, different stuff like that. It's been definitely something I've commonly talked about as of late, in the last few months. But it is a topic that has been increasing in conversation for the last few years, especially since anime started to blow up in popularity. And this, article that Anime TV Japan posted really brings up a lot of good points. It brings up, the situation of how anime culture is being forced to change. It's bringing up, how people want to sanitize the medium, how people want anime to lose its unique flavor, or it's becoming a shallow, hollowed version of it once was. That's what a lot of people want. And this is definitely not something that is just strictly tied on social media, aka Twitter. This is something you can actively see on the entire internet, with anime growing in popularity, with anime becoming the next big thing, so to speak. There's a lot of people on so many different platforms that say, oh, anime shouldn't have this adult content in it. There shouldn't be an anime character that has, big chest. There isn't an anime character that should be able to, express themselves in any way. You have these individuals that want to straight up sanitize the work, and they want people to censor the content. They actively cheer for content to be censored, and I've already covered a few of these individuals in the past in previous videos, and even yesterday, but one thing in particular is that this conversation has heated up considerably thanks to the Bocchi the Rock situation reaching on such a large scale, with a bunch of people within the Japanese community and in the industry as well speaking out about censorship of, just for instance, Bocchi's chest. And it wasn't even really that big on fan service. It was just literally her having a chest. And that's kind of where we're at, and a lot of people are just talking about how anime needs to remove that content or it doesn't. And I'm just gonna do a fun fact here, or just a hot take. Well, this isn't even a hot take. Anime fan service is a part of the culture, and just as how Anime TV Japan said it here, it is a necessity. It is something that is so ingrained in the culture, removing it would literally remove the very essence that has been a part of anime since basically the beginning. It would no longer be anime if it was removed. You can love or hate fan service, there's nothing wrong with that, but telling authors, creators, artists, and stuff that they can no longer do it, or wanting it completely removed in its entirety, is an absolutely horrendous thing, an absolutely horrendous take, and it's not a good thing, because it stifles creative expression, freedom of expression within art, and it is something, as I've already talked about in length, I am completely against. But anyways, with all this rambling aside, I do want to read this article and kind of get into the meat of the conversation. So let's start. Fan service. Just saying the phrase is enough to spark an online flame war. Some fans defend it as part of anime's DNA, which is what I do, while others deride it as a cheap, unnecessary, or even harmful. The truth, as is often the case, is somewhere in the middle. Now, I want to be completely blunt here. I completely disagree with this opening statement from Anime TV Japan. I think that if it's already within the content, in the original source and everything, it is not harmful. It's what the creator wants, and actively saying that fictional content is harmful, I think, is actually harmful itself. I think that this is the same argument that people make with, video games cause violence. I'm just going to be completely blunt on that one. But here's the reality. Anime has always dealt with sexuality and adult themes, and pretending otherwise isn't just inaccurate, it's counterproductive. When handled with intention, fan service can enhance storytelling, add depth to characters, and reflect human experiences that are both awkward and intimate. Rejecting it outright has become increasingly popular among a generation already struggling with social anxiety around intimacy, risk-stripping anime of a cultural nuance that has defined it for decades. Anime has never shied away from adult themes, from the psychological trauma explored in Neon Genesis to the mature romance in Nana or Inuyasha. Sexuality and relationships have always been part of the medium. For fan service, whether in the form of playful humor, character vulnerability, or even tension in battle scenes, has long served as a way to both humanize and complicate characters. Of course, not all fan service is created equal. Some is clumsy, gratuitous, or feels tacked on for shock value, but some is deliberate, woven into the plot in a way that heightens character development or adds stakes to a narrative. Dismissing it wholesale ignores the diversity of how it's been used and how it can function as a meaningful storytelling device. Now, before I continue on reading, I do want to talk about this one. So, it's very clear that the individual that wrote this article is trying to do a glass half full, glass half empty, so to speak. They're kind of talking about both sides, which I think is a fair thing to do within this, article. There's nothing wrong with that, but there is one thing that's very important to take note of, and that is the fact that, yes, it's okay if you dislike fan service, but wanting it completely gone is not okay. And that's basically what this article writer is saying, is that there is some things that they might not even like, but they don't want it outright removed. They straight up, they want it still to be there, which I want to make sure that is very important that people take away from this, is that they're not directly advocating for censorship or anything. They're just more or less saying their personal opinion on it, which is completely fine. However, if you want my personal take on some of this stuff right here that was said, for instance, some fan service is not created equally, there is some aspects of that is true, and let's keep it real, and I will explain the reason. There is obviously stories that is about expressing yourself in an adult way with your outfits or how you carry yourself. Like, My Dress Up Darling is actually a very good example of this. Marin's cosplay. It's a very good example of adding in fan service and adult themes, but in a way that is woven into the plot. And then there is some stories to where there's just a random, slip. Like, for instance, there's a pantsuit shot or something like that, and it's out of nowhere, and it's in a serious moment. Now, I'm not going to say that type of stuff is bad. I actually like it. I'm not going to act like I hate it. But the direction I think this article writer is trying to say is that some fan service is there to actually be weaved into the story, while some is just there that is straight up fan service. But at the end of the day, if the content is there and it was created by the original writer/artist, then it has all means and rights to be there. It does have a purpose, because that is what the author's vision was for it. Regardless if you dislike it, you hate it, or whatever, the point of the matter is that the artist and author put it there, which means it should be there, even if you don't want to see it. End of discussion on that. In recent years, criticism of fan service has become louder and more mainstream. Social media has amplified voices that frame it as outdated or inappropriate, and studios have taken note. Anime, once brimming with suggestive humor or provocative tension, now opts for safer, sterilized narratives meant to avoid controversy. And this is so true. Bocchi the Rock. That's a really good recent example. And then we got to talk about the author that did Konohana Kitan, that spoke out about their work back in 2017, that got animated and got completely sterilized to be able to present it to a wider audience. So it's very obvious that there is a lot of different people within the industry that we're probably completely unaware of that has had their works sterilized to be able to be more accepted for a global audience, which is obviously not good. And this is definitely something that is increasing and ramping up, and I think anyone that has been watching anime for decades, or hell, for the last 15 years, has definitely seen that gradual trend that, once where you could see, let's say, another good example, there was a lot of, pantsuit shots and stuff like that, or different type of fan service stuff, has been effectively removed. You don't really see it. Now, there is anime that still comes out that does it here and there, but it was very often. You could see it all over the place. It was very, very common. But nowadays, you don't see it. And that is something to really consider and talk about. This cultural shift isn't happening in isolation. Studies and surveys suggest that younger generations are increasingly anxious about intimacy. Rising social isolation, digital-first lifestyles, and a climate of hypercritical online discourse have contributed to a climate where many people are more comfortable avoiding depictions of sex altogether. That discomfort is understandable, but it has its consequences. When audiences demand anime scrub itself clean of adult themes, they're asking the medium to deny a part of the human experience. Art is supposed to make us uncomfortable at times. It's supposed to push boundaries, not just soothe them. If there is anything that I could say is based from this article, it's definitely that. That statement right there. It's supposed to push boundaries, not just soothe them. It's supposed to make you uncomfortable. That is such a true statement, because let's think about this. There is a lot of uncomfortable stories that make your skin crawl, and you're like, holy crap. There is moments in Berserk that is absolutely horrifying. But it's meant to be horrifying. It's meant to be uncomfortable. There is things that happen that happens, and it's meant to shock the audience or the reader. It's meant to make you feel like, holy crap, this is messed up. But it is uncomfortable because it is there to progress the story or do things with the story or the writing or whatever. And I think that people wanting something that makes them uncomfortable completely removed from a medium is not good. That is a very bad thing to do, because it's like, just because something makes you uncomfortable doesn't mean it shouldn't exist. Straight up. So, yeah, this is a very base statement from them, and I do think that we have seen this cultural shift as well. I mean, I'm going to show some examples here. We have this one right here, where you have this argument that continuously appears over and over again. It's a constant thing, and once again, this isn't just isolated to, like, Twitter or X. You see this happen on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Reddit. You see this type of statements and stuff where people can't separate reality from fiction, and they start thinking that, you know, fiction is reality and stuff, and then they get proven wrong, but this type of argument keeps coming out. It's literally the same argument about video games cause violence. And then you have takes like this, where you have individuals that think that weebs saying fan service is an integral part of anime culture and leftist extremists removing it will be the death of the industry, and then they expect us to take them seriously. Like, this is some crazy stuff that's been gaining a lot of traction, and I've already shown a few posts in just the last few days, but there is definitely a narrative I've seen to where a lot of people are trying to turn anime into more of a political agenda, which has been happening for years technically with localizations and stuff, but it is interesting just how much more loud this is becoming, where you have people effectively wanting to completely remove, like, adult content within anime, and even denying its existence, and then saying, like, oh, it's funny that you think it'll be the death of anime, which technically will, because anime was always weird, it was shocking and different, and that's what got a lot of people into it. That's why a lot of people gravitated towards even Demon Slayer, because despite Demon Slayer being a little bit more, like, open to a lot more people, it still is very different from the common stuff you see in the, you know, the West. So I think in general, when you look at this situation, it's crazy how this narrative has gained a lot more traction, and a lot more people are starting to say this, which I'm completely against, by the way. The best uses of fan service are never just about the surface, they're about what the moment reveals. Consider when a character's composure slips in an awkward situation, showing vulnerability that strengthens their bond with another, or when a suggestive scene underscores the intensity of a relationship, heightening the stake of the drama to come. Even battle-heavy shonen series have shown how sexuality and physicality can influence combat dynamics, character motivations, and audience investment. At its most effective, fan service can be funny, poignant, or even tragic. It can humanize characters by showing sides of them that might otherwise remain hidden. Rejecting that entirely robs anime of one of its most distinctive strengths, its ability to embrace extremes, both emotional and aesthetic, in ways Western media often avoid. True. This is an argument for uncritical acceptance of all fan service. Anime still struggles with lazy tropes, objectification, and tonal whiplash when fan service is handled poorly. Those issues deserve critique. But the answer isn't censorship by culture, nor the growing trend of blanket rejection. The answer is discernment. We should be asking whether fan service serves the story, the characters, or the emotional truth of the scene. When it does, it deserves appreciation, not dismissal. Anime has always thrived on its ability to explore themes that other mediums shy away from. Pretending that sexuality has no place in it not only misrepresents its history, but also denies audiences the chance to engage with stories that reflect real human complexity. Anime is bold because it doesn't always play safe. It's emotional, dramatic, awkward, sometimes messy. That's what makes it resonate. Removing sexuality and adult themes out of fear or discomfort risks sanding down the edges that make it unique. As more anime crosses in the mainstream, Western markets, there will always be tension over what is appropriate. But instead of sanitizing the medium, we should embrace its range. Fan service can be tasteless or it can be transformative. The difference is intention. If the next generation of fans learns to reject it entirely, not because of poor execution, but out of anxiety about intimacy itself, anime risks losing part of its culture, its soul, and that's something worth fighting against. So, it's very obvious from this article that the person that wrote this thinks fan service and, like, adult content should exist within anime, but it's very clear that there is a line, a personal opinion line that they have, and even if I disagree with their opinion, I think in general I will respect it, because it's not like they're saying that it shouldn't exist. They are just saying it can be critiqued, which, like I said, is fair. That is a completely fair thing to do. But, like I said, this brings up a very big discussion just around anime in general, because anime has had this shift, this growing shift to try to censor it completely, and I think a lot of people are just absolutely upset about that. They're done with it, and myself included, I'm done with it as well, seeing these type of activists trying to censor stuff that is just about expressing yourself in just a feminine way. Like, I mean, the Bocchi stuff alone is just very, like, horrible, like what a lot of people are talking about, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons why there's such, like, massive pushback now against that, at least within Japan, and I'm glad to actually see it. Like, I'm glad to see Japan fighting back and not wanting stuff to, you know, be censored. But yeah, what do you think about this, you know, article? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Do you agree with some things? Do you disagree with things? Are you like me, where there is a lot of things I agree with, but then there's things I disagree with? But judging by this article writer's words, I'm assuming that they don't like Fire Force or like Fairy Tail or something. I could be wrong, because they don't straight up say that, but that's my assumption, especially with how they outline their distinction of what needs to be there and what doesn't. But I'll leave it at that. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It helps with the algorithm. Chibi out.